What's up, Netflix fans? We talk all things streaming on this channel. Death by Lightning is the brand new limited series, a historical drama. What's it about? Let's discuss.
There is an energy in the air. We're on the precipice of something desperately exciting.
And this is the stranger-than-fiction true story of the 20th U.S. President, James Garfield, someone who we don't get a lot of shows about, and his admirer, Charles Guiteau. And as you all know, as history goes, inevitably James Garfield gets assassinated. Oh my gosh, it's a spoiler. No, it's true. Most of us should know that. I'm curious who doesn't know that. Raise your hand who wasn't paying attention in class. But like I said, this is a period piece, political drama, kind of a historical epic, if you will, a docudrama, whatever genre you want to throw on it. It is filled with one of the best TV show casts of the year, led by Michael Shannon, as we know, one of the best movie actors anytime he's in a film, regardless of the project. Even Man of Steel, he's so good. Here he gets to be the man himself, James Garfield. Absolutely spectacular performance. Now, I can't speak on all of the details here, whether it be the nuances of how this character acts or kind of what goes on in the show itself. We know it's dramatized. Obviously, it's on Netflix, and you get some of those accents that don't quite fit in the time, this and that, but understandably so, they're going to add so many things to it. But from what I understand, from what I've read and seen people talk about on Twitter, because we know that's reliable, it is a fairly accurate interpretation. Now, some of the characters are a bit different than maybe who they really were in real life. We'll get into Nick Offerman's interpretation here in just a second. But Shannon was excellent. And then you've got Betty Gilpin, who plays kind of that really strong and supportive wife, the one who keeps him going, the one who keeps him calm and collected, kind of works and acts as that mouthpiece when he's not in the mood to talk to anyone, as he is a little later on in the show. But this is a guy that kind of gets thrust into this position, doesn't necessarily want to be the man in power. You can tell deep down when he gets up to give that very first speech, which was an excellent moment. By the way, I loved the delivery and kind of the power behind what he was saying. And it is funny how there are certain themes in the show that are relevant to our time now, obviously. But then what kind of comes with the hesitancy of taking a position like this, President of the United States. Only the 20th, so we weren't super deep into the collection here, but I just really like that opening episode and how he takes control and very hesitantly, like I said, steps up to the plate, even though deep down you can tell he knew what he was doing with that first speech, and he understood that people would want to put him into that position because he works as a mouthpiece for what they found to be so important. That proved to be right. Now, the rest of this cast, Shea Wiggum, Bradley Whitford as James Blaine, Nick Offerman as Vice President Chester Arthur. Now, from what I have read, he plays more of like a bumbling drunk. I don't want to be where I am. I don't deserve to be here. Maybe a little more emotional than he was in real life, to where I've read that maybe there's a little more extravagance there, and maybe that's kind of where he ended up once he took power after what happened to James Garfield. But regardless of whether it's a proper interpretation, again, not a History Channel, just reviewing the show here, Nick Offerman is great. He has those standard Nick Offerman traits in this series, that little laugh that he gives off from Parks and Rec. Regardless of what the movie or show is, he always does that, and those trademark Nick Offerman-isms, that's what I like to call it. I don't call it that. I just made that up. Now I'm going to call it that. But he's excellent here. Another guy who didn't really want to be in the position that he's in, and throughout this show, he's like, I don't deserve to be here. I am speaking out against my president, yet for some reason, you still believe in me. And I think that's a great dynamic. And they don't get a ton of screen time together, but when they do, there's always this calmness by Garfield, regardless of what Arthur had said about him or is feeling in the moment. And again, just not wanting to be the vice president, at least that's what's conveyed in the show. And I just love those moments between them. And then in that final episode, when you get a great conversation there, I just thought it was so well handled. This is a great show to convey what a lot of people have been looking for as of late, and that is great dialogue and a great political drama showing us a timely piece of history that captures that time. aesthetically, visually, down to the mannerisms of the characters. Now, again, some of the accents could-ish feel like it's more modernized, but at the same time, I'm okay when a show approaches history like this because you understand it's dramatized, but man, some of these conversations between those specifically, I mentioned Shea Whigham, plays Roscoe Conkling, excellent. Bradley Whitford as James Blaine, a very interesting character here, the way he's written, the way he's conveyed. I mean, Bradley Whitford is one of those standard character actors you're always looking for to pop up in a TV show. I mean, you've got movies like Get Out, but oh my God, I loved his presence in this series. Obviously Gilpin, then you've got guys like Alistair Petrie. But let's talk about the other big part of this show, Charles J. Guiteau. Matthew Macfadyen, no stranger to television, obviously had the big role in Deadpool last year, but we all know him from Succession. And I was curious, could he capture the essence of someone who, and what I know about Guiteau is that he had this very obsessive belief that he could be a part of this movement. And, you know, at the beginning of this show, people are so kind of annoyed by his presence, but there's something about him, this luster in his eye, and it's like, all right, kid, you can join us in this movement to get Garfield elected. Are you really going to do anything helpful? Regardless, he takes this and has this very obsessive outlook on it and believes that he can be a part of this, but as this show progresses, slowly realizes that maybe they don't feel as strongly about him as he does about them, and even after everything goes down, just like this conniving, evil presence that he has. I love how this show starts, and it starts in modern day, and they're carrying around a brain in a jar. It's not a spoiler because it's the first scene in the show, and I'm like, where is this going? This is such a weird thing to do, but as we get back to that later on in the show, the way that they tie that in, I thought was brilliant, and I love the idea. And we're all waiting on James Garfield to get shot, because we know that happens. But how are they going to go about that? What's the build-up going to be like? And is the dialogue going to be interesting? Because we have to make the drama of the time important enough to care. It can't just be mumbo jumbo from that time period, and we're watching it going, what is this? And then you have, on top of all of this, the frustration behind how him being shot was handled, and the idea of, we have modern medicine now, of what medicine back in the day was doing to, occasionally save people, but there were many times where they were just doing stupid stuff, and, well, you watch the show.
You bastards!
It was so frustrating. It's amazing what knowledge and technology can do, because even someone as a non-medical person, I mean, my wife is, I'm not, but I'm watching this like, that's not what you're supposed to, no, you don't handle, what are you doing? What, are you stupid?
You stupid.
By the way, our creator here, Mike Makowski, who did Bad Education, and our executive producers, Benioff and Weiss, from Game of Thrones fame, I believe add a lot to this, from probably building this well-rounded cast in such a way, and I believe everything about that is perfect. Again, I don't know as much if the interpretations are accurate, but the performances are magnificent. But at the same time, they're bringing this grandiose touch that makes it feel extremely cinematic, like you're watching a film on a big screen. It feels like a 4-hour-long movie, if you will, and that's exactly what you want a limited series to feel like. And there were times where I thought the pacing could get in the way of me sinking my claws into these characters, but that never happened. I was always invested, regardless of who was on screen. Even if we go a few scenes without Garfield himself, and the build-up to what we are so excited about happening. I hate to say it like that, but just interested to see how it goes down. And, a president we don't get as much about, information that's out there, but maybe some people aren't as aware, and I knew the big points here, but I didn't know the details. And to see the details play out was fascinating. What's really sad here is that Garfield was portrayed as a decent man, a good man, someone who respected those around him, even if they completely disagreed. We don't get that a lot in politics nowadays. And again, someone who was kind of thrust in that position who would have made, I believe, just watching this show, a very good president if given more time. And this kind of sent things into a panic when he was assassinated. And this was before a time where we had the Secret Service, and so it was a lot easier back then to do something like that, even though, many have tried and succeeded since then and almost succeeded recently. It's a crazy world that we live in now, but it was also just as crazy, just on a smaller scale back in the day, and we see that portrayed in the show and the politics of it all and how that's changed so drastically, how people were definitely in it for themselves, and we didn't see it a lot in the show, but I like to believe there was a bit of good on both sides back in the day as well, and I feel like Garfield was one of those good men, and that was really cool to see. Is there any good on either side today? Stay tuned. Will we ever know? Probably not.
No.
Also, assassination is no more guarded against than death by lightning. That line.
I gotta tell you, it was perfect.
So I want to know, are you a fan of this president? One that's never really portrayed on TV shows like this? Were you a fan of Death by Lightning? What is your favorite, political or we'll say historical drama of all time? Man, I could go to so many. I'm partial to something like the Hatfield and McCoy's TV show that came out years ago. I lived in eastern Kentucky. Actually, I lived right on top of where that went down, so that's pretty cool. But a show like this, did you enjoy it? Also, be sure to share this video, drop a like if you want more of these Netflix series reviews. Death by Lightning is a phenomenally cast, well-paced, and engaging political drama that describes a moment in time too interesting to be left by the wayside. Shannon is as excellent as expected, and Macfadyen perfectly conveys the desperation that inevitably becomes pathetic. But this story never loses its momentum with each perspective shift. It is one of the more compelling limited series of 2025, and that's why I would highly recommend Death by Lightning. Only 4 episodes. You want to learn a little bit of history and see Nick Offerman do his little giggle? I think you'll really enjoy this show. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Very surprising and, could be creeping around my top 10 of the year come the end. And we're almost there, folks. It's almost December, and my daughter's going to be born in 2 weeks. Good Lord. I'll see you soon.